I'm delighted to be the host today and introduce you to two of our product experts in inclusion and belonging. They're going to showcase today some of the exciting innovations that we're doing today. Now, the solution that we're going to show you was inspired and created by Karen Taylor to really accelerate diversity and inclusion efforts by turning positive intentions into meaningful outcomes using valuing inclusion, belonging, and equity for all. So here with me today, I have Heather Gartner, Senior Director of our Inclusion and Belonging Solution, and Marlene Schultz, Senior Director of our Workday's Recruiting Strategy. Now, in just a few moments, we're going to show you how you can use Workday to put your inclusion and belonging ideas into action, or what we like to say, commit, drive, and thrive with Vibe. Now, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. So throughout the sessions, using the navigation bar that you've come to know and love so well on the left-hand side, you can post a question at any time by simply clicking on the Live Now button and then the question button at that. As you heard from Karen Taylor, we are committed to belonging and diversity, and we are so excited to be here with you, change makers that share our same aspirations and are leading the charge with passion and energy and looking to make a lasting impact. It's about taking action, and at Workday we like to say it's not about goal setting, it's about goal getting. And we have developed a systematic approach with accountable analytics. That starts with the business defining the strategy and then committing to the diversity and inclusion goals, and then driving accountability through the system through disciplined measurements we call outcomes and indicators, so that you can take intentional actions in Workday to really move you from goal setting to goal getting. Heather, can you talk about how we bring all of this together, the strategy, the outcomes, the indicators, and actions to create what we call a virtuous cycle of opportunity, engagement, and innovation, and how you can use Workday to really expand that box that Franz talked about and make a great place to work for Louise?
Absolutely, Barbary. At Workday, we've created a diversity and inclusion solution that does three important things to help you go from goal setting to goal getting. It first starts with understanding where you are and the outcomes you've achieved, as well as where you can identify the greatest opportunities for positive change and setting goals with the Vibe Index. Next, it's all about discovering and uncovering the factors that contribute to your outcomes. So where you can understand the key performance indicators and identify what actions you can take to improve those outcomes. And finally, it's about intentional action within Workday HCM across the entire talent and employment lifecycle to achieve your goals and become goal-getters.
Now, Heather, I know you were actually in the room where it happened with Greg and Karen. What makes this solution so different and so unique?
Well, Barbary, it comes down to three key capabilities. The first is the great breadth and depth of the Vibe Index. It gives you the ability to see talent, leadership, culture outcomes, and go beyond just diverse representation to value inclusion, belonging, and equity as well. The second, it's a theme of the day, it's all about intersectionality. The Vibe Index can reveal important insights from combinations of dimensions that employees use to identify themselves and shape their experiences, such as gender, race, ethnicity, generation, and more. And finally, the equity and parity of the Vibe Index, which provides instant visibility into where you have the greatest opportunities to drive positive change and create a great place to work, a place where Louise is able to bring her best self to work.
Heather, can you get us started by taking a deeper look in the Vibe Index, the first stop on that virtuous cycle that we talked about?
I would love to take you a deeper look at the Vibe Index. So we've talked a lot about data and storytelling throughout our conversations today. The Vibe Index enables you to tell a story with your data across the complete life cycle for your population. So you can see with the Vibe Index, it measures across 5 key outcomes from hiring, promotions, leadership, belonging, and attrition. And as Franz mentioned earlier, it's critical that you have inclusion to make diversity actually matter. So in addition to measuring across these 5 outcomes, we give you the ability to measure across different intersection groups of your population so you can tell a more holistic and precise story. In this example, you can see we're using a combination of race, ethnicity, and gender to create a view for the US version of our Vibe Index.
Heather, am I right to assume that you can change those intersections by country or location for global organizations?
Absolutely, Barbary. As I'm sure you're all very aware, the topic of self-ID is complicated. You have regulatory factors, geographic factors, cultural factors that influence your decisions. And so we've created the ability for you to configure these intersections, leveraging over 30 demographic data attributes that are available through self-ID.
Wow, 30 different attributes. It would be interesting to see how many of those attributes are customers really using and how many intersections are you seeing customers create for the Vibe Index?
Yeah, it's a great question, Barbary, and it's a range. So we have customers who have 4 intersections, and there's other customers who have up to 28 intersections. We also see variability across the dimensions they're using. Commonly, we see gender identity, military status, disability, and nationality. It all really depends on your strategy and the goals you're setting for your organization. So, when you combine these 5 outcomes with the power of unlocking the insights of intersectionality, the data really becomes sort of your North Star. It provides a clear view of how you're progressing towards your belonging and diversity goals. So, as Karen mentioned earlier, one of the stories our data told us here at Workday was that our female Asian population was not having the same experience as other populations at Workday. With the Vibe Index, we were able to see that there's high attrition rates for this particular group. And what I find is so incredible about this solution and the application of it at Workday is that instead of taking hours or days or even weeks prior and pouring through data and reports to figure out even where to start, instead you can zero in, focus your efforts, take targeted, intentional action to improve equity and inclusion, and help you become goal getters. So, the last thing I would love to share is really just how you can use the index to compare and benchmark performance across your organization. This can help shift towards a system of accountability. But what I think is also really great is that you can help accelerate your progress. Because imagine if you can understand where certain pockets of your organization are having positive results, you can learn from and amplify those processes more broadly across your organization.
That really brings it to life for me, Heather. Now that we can understand and zero in on where you are with your diversity and inclusion efforts, how do you do the next stop on the virtuous cycle to really understand the factors behind the outcomes?
Absolutely. So we have something that we call the Vibe Central Diversity Dashboard. And with the Vibe Central Diversity Dashboard, you have one centralized place in Workday where you can discover and uncover the key factors that are driving the outcomes that you see in your Vibe Index. So notice that the Vibe Central Dashboard, and this is not by accident, follows the same employee and talent lifecycle as the Vibe Index. So we've consolidated the key performance indicators and real-time insights behind hiring, promotion, leadership, belonging, and attrition outcomes to make it really easy to kind of connect the dots with your data. You can also set targets here and benchmark how you are doing against your peers. For example, let's dive into one of the outcomes for hiring, where we've heard from you that there are some key challenges occurring through different stages of the hiring process. So, to help you find and source from more diverse talent pools, you can use the candidate sources by ethnicity report to help you identify which sources are yielding the most diverse candidates so that you can expand your efforts and source more underrepresented populations from these sources. Jumping over into the next report of the pipeline funnel, as Kim mentioned earlier, it's important to tell the complete story of a candidate's journey with data. And so this report really helps you to identify which populations are making it through the pipeline at each stage of the hiring process and where people are dropping off. So you can understand the story to take action and address the disparities in the talent acquisition process.
I can see now, armed with this information, how valuable it is because then you can determine what are the intentional actions that you can actually take to improve those outcomes. A question for you, Marlene. As the head of Workday's product strategy for recruiting, what are some of the challenges or factors that are preventing the organizations to improve their hiring outcomes?
Yes, absolutely, Barbary. Maintaining that right level of engagement throughout the hiring process is critical to ensure inclusivity and promote equity. And Workday Recruiting can help organizations address their diversity challenges in 3 key areas of the hiring process. The first challenge we see is around sourcing. Organizations struggle to find underrepresented minority candidates and diverse talent pools to source from. The second challenge is during the selection process and moving diverse candidates through assessments and interviews. And the third challenge is converting and onboarding diverse candidates into hires.
So, what are some of the new capabilities within Workday that really address those challenges to take those factors and solve them with intentional actions?
Yes, let's begin with taking a look at sourcing. So, to increase the pool of diverse candidates to source from, you can embrace more inclusive hiring practices by defining the job requirements based on work outcomes and actual skills needed, not credentials. And as Franz mentioned earlier, think about the broader context of the team and the adjacent skills needed for innovation. And so here, Workday can enable and empower you to implement skills-based employment practices by using our Skills Cloud and machine learning to not only suggest skills when creating a job requisition, but more importantly, to help candidates identify skills to add to their application. And so as the candidate applies for a position, Workday will parse their resume and suggest skills that they can choose to add to their application. And this experience makes it easy for candidates to identify and add relevant skills while helping recruiters find candidates with the right skills for a given opportunity. And as part of the application process, candidates can voluntarily self-identify, share, and tell their story. And completing this task is quick and easy. And by providing a personal data statement, candidates have complete transparency into their data usage. And now, to broaden your candidate pool even more and democratize opportunities, organizations can also leverage our candidate job suggestion feature, which will suggest additional jobs a candidate could consider applying for.
I can see how this could really help organizations create more equitable employment programs and really broaden the talent pool. Is there a way to measure how well this is working if the sourcing actions are actually resulting in more diverse applicant pools?
Yes, absolutely. So Workday's candidate diversity analytics allow you to monitor and proactively manage the diversity of your candidate pools by gender and ethnicity. And you can look at this across your whole applicant pool, which Heather spoke about a little bit earlier, but also at the individual job requisition level. And so having this visibility at the job rec level really enables recruiters to determine if they need to continue sourcing more diverse applicants before moving on to the next stage.
Now, Marlene, I mentioned earlier that unconscious bias was one of the key challenges. How can Workday help mitigate unconscious bias?
Yes, Barbie, we often hear from our customers that it is during this stage when they're reviewing, assessing, or interviewing applicants where they are losing diverse candidates. And unconscious bias, which exists throughout the entire selection process, is one of the key reasons diverse candidates do not make it through. And though technology cannot address these issues alone, there are capabilities in Workday that you can leverage to help you mitigate bias and improve your hiring outcomes. First, you can leverage our automation framework to advance candidates that have scored well on their questionnaires or assessment responses to the next step in the process without human intervention. And this approach enables you to focus on the candidate's skills and their capabilities. Now, second, you can use our masked candidate screening, which we introduced in September of last year, to hide personal identifiable information, such as name, education institute, zip code, and so on, that could potentially lead to biased decision-making. Now, this is completely configurable, so you decide at which stages to mask this information and for which roles, recruiters, hiring managers, or others. And so masked candidate screening really enables the decision maker to focus on the applicant's experience, their skills, answers to any pre-screening questions, to get that unbiased view of how qualified they are for this position. And they can then use this capability-based information to determine the next step forward. And so using this combination of automation and masked candidate screening can really help to mitigate that unconscious bias. And remember, this is completely configurable, so you can tailor it to your own needs.
Now, once the candidate is hired, how does Workday help prevent the leaky bucket syndrome that we've been hearing about today?
Yes, it absolutely does not end when the candidate becomes a new hire. The conversion and onboarding process offers their first look at life in the organization. Does the company culture live up to their expectations? Do new hires find it easy to find their place? tell their story, as Kim mentioned from PwC, and make connections in the organization? And what about career mobility and growth? And so with Workday's people experience and journeys, we are able to curate and create personalized content, as well as cultivate a sense of belonging by providing helpful resources and enabling new hires to make connections from the very beginning. And we can help ensure new hires not only learn the right new skills for their personal development, but also for the benefit of the organization, and do it in a democratized way. And so this onboarding experience really enables new hires to find the information and resources to help them onboard and guide them and coach them through the process, create high quality connections, create mentors, sponsors, and even invite employees to join employee resource groups. Provide recommended learning and resources to help them quickly and efficiently learn new skills and capabilities, and present opportunities to identify career and talent aspirations and provide the ability to empower their own career.
Thank you, Marlene and Heather, for taking us full circle through the virtuous cycle of accountable analytics, from measuring outcomes with the Vibe Index, to identifying the factors and indicators behind those outcomes with Vibe Central, to taking those intentional actions that Marlene talked about in Workday recruiting, onboarding, and talent marketplace. Next, I'd like to check in and bring back our wonderful Liz Jennings to see if we had any questions and answer them throughout the session. Liz?
Hi there. We did get an interesting question, and a good one that I'd love to point over to Marlene. And it is, does Workday have any customers today that are using Workday to really help become more of a skills-based employer?
Liz, yeah, that's a great question. And we have customers that are really in different stages in this journey, but they do understand how these skills-based hiring can broaden the pool and democratize job opportunities and work. And so, for example, I know we have one pharmaceutical customer that already has a program in place, and they're really focusing on screening in for skills rather than screening out. And one of their main goal is to increase their diversity hires. And some of our other customers, they are in the process of identifying those entry-level jobs where they can apply these skills-based employment practices. And some areas where they've had great success is on the IT or the call center areas, where they've implemented these practices and seen some great success. But overall, I think our customers understand that technology can really play that role to enable these practices and to help democratize these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Marlene and Liz. It looks like we're running out of time. I just wanted to thank all three of you, Liz, Marlene, Heather, for the great discussion and also for showcasing all those wonderful innovations. And I hope you have a great day. And before we close, I would like to share with all of you where you can get more information about our diversity and inclusion solutions. So back again on the left-hand navigation bar, there's a resource icon. When you click on that resource icon, you will have access to be able to view and also have access to all the resources and information that we're sharing with you today.